Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 111 today for the Austrian Grand Prix in Season 7. If you guys did miss the previous one, the Canadian Grand Prix, then be sure to go check this one out before you see this one. We've got a full race here at the Red Bull Ring. Last time out was the Canadian sprint race, and well, it was a very chaotic one, an unbelievable overtake by our teammate Pierre Gasly. Maybe potentially could be the overtake of the season, as someone said in the comments below, really, because it was three abreast, three wide into the hairpin. He was on the outside, and that was for, spoiler alert, the race lead versus Verstappen, and also, what was it, Lance Stroll and Guan Yu Zhou, I think. Yeah, Guan Yu Zhou was the one they were fighting, but, you know, after a very, weird start to the race where we almost got, T-boned by the Williams, that same Williams then went on to be in the lead of the race for a bit with Lance Stroll, because those two pit under that early safety car, and it did cause a bit of chaos then, and a bit of action obviously late on for the race win and the whole podium, really, with Antonio Giovinazzi proving again that he's just ever consistent. Got a late podium, very low-key one, to get some decent points. For us, it was a struggle. I really can't say much more than that. It was a struggle. It was baffling, really, at a race where it's one of my favourite circuits on the F1 game. Usually, I'm very quick around there, but I had just a lack of pace versus Gasly, who wins back-to-back wins, and we got thrashed. We were too busy fighting, Ocon towards the end of the race, and, many other cars around us, but we just weren't able to get away from them and try and chase down those leading guys. But every single episode and race is a clean slate. We'll move away and try and reset and go again for the Red Bull Ring. It's a race where we again have gone well, especially on this game in particular, F1 2021. We've always gone well here around the Red Bull Ring. It's a really exciting circuit on the game, so much slipstreaming and overtaking, so I'm sure a full race around here is going to be very, very fun. But we're going to kick things off on the back foot a bit.
We've got a situation at the moment. Seems like something's off with the fuel injection system. We're looking into it, but we're going to be out of action for a few minutes.
So I just said about having a clean slate and resetting. We get met with a fuel system fault. To be fair, though, only in Q1, so, we've got plenty of time to make up for it, and it would have been a bit worse, potentially, if it was in Q3. It's a little bit overcast around this weekend, so maybe some, maybe a little threat of rain. We'll have to see about that, but certainly not all sunny skies. But we're going to go then for our second flying lap, this is actually. So we did consecutive laps in Q1, because there's this weird thing I've found with the later seasons in Austria, where if you go down to the lowest fuel setting, you actually still have enough fuel to do 2 consecutive runs, which means technically your car is running heavier than it could be. So I did 2 runs in a row, found a bit more time on the second run, still only down in P13, but it gets us through into the Q2, and of course, as usual, we'll speed up, we always do, hopefully, into Q2 and Q3, but Gasly is right up there at the sharp end with Leclerc in the Porsche. But this is what I meant then, rain did arrive, actually, funnily enough, at the very start of Q2, but it won't matter, because I actually just sit here, because I can see that's going to stop raining, the clouds will part, and the sun will start to come out. So, pretty much, we kind of continue where we left off here, somewhat overcast, cloudy conditions, because the rain has come and gone. Everyone set some into lap times, but I just didn't bother. I just thought we'd go out on a set of soft tyres at the very end, and just not even risk maybe a crash or whatever. And again, we're going to do 2 consecutive laps here, because we can burn the fuel a bit more in the second run, get a little bit lower down. That might give us a bit more lap time here. At the moment, though, we have gone quickest of all. 1-2 with Gasly. Of course, though, many people still yet to set their proper lap times. We go quicker, but then Gasly, who was right behind me, immediately beats us. So the teammate battle is really hotting up, and as ever, Gasly is frustrating me. But this time, it's in quali, I think so far we've generally qualified better than him, apart from the last 2 episodes. But in the race, that's where he's normally had us. But now even in quali, he's getting us and getting under our skin. The usual suspects through into the top 10 shootout there. Felipe Drogovic in the Red Bull, Leclerc, Giovinazzi. Dan Ticktum, though, gets through. Both Red Bulls through. Verstappen and also Lewis Hamilton. That is a surprise. Hamilton looking very close, I must say, performance-wise there to Verstappen. So maybe the shorter track allowing him to get closer to Max. But as we enter Q3, we've got a big problem, actually. What I did not realise, and this is actually a massive mistake that I've never made. It's the first kind of mistake I've made like this ever on the F1 game. I did not realise my tyre did not automatically get switched over at Q2. So I did 2 consecutive runs on the tyre that I had already done 2 consecutive runs on. And that tyre was the tyre I qualified just now in Q2. So that means that's the tyre I have to start with, because of course on this game we've still got that rule that you start on the same compound that you qualified on. So no matter what happens in Q3 here, we've just made our lives so difficult with that mistake, that really quite howling blunder, because the start of the race then, I mean, off the 5 red lights, we're going to have less grip, and then also we're going to have to pit so much earlier and put ourselves on the back foot constantly, because we have to pit earlier than everyone for all our pit stops now for the whole race, because I will be basically 6 laps ahead of them in terms of tyre wear every single time. So this, yeah, we've not made things made easy here at this circuit. So I just don't know what happened. I've never made that mistake. I assume usually it switches over automatically, but for whatever reason, it did not switch automatically to a new tyre compound. I guess because it was raining. I think maybe because the game assigned me intermediates at the start of the session, and I manually swapped it to the dries when it was time to go for the dries. Maybe that's why, is my only thought. So that is, yeah, not ideal. What's done is done, though, and we have to move on and just deal with it now. So we're here on our second run in Q3. Now, on purpose, my first flying lap, I did slow on purpose, and now this is technically my second consecutive lap on this second fresh set of tyres, if you know what I mean. So I've kind of done what they sometimes do in real life, prepare the tyre with another lap just to get the fuel down. I'm not preparing the tyre, I was actually just burning my fuel. It hasn't really worked amazingly though. Red in the first sector, purple in the second though, but we're not really gaining too much time in the last 2 corners, apart from right on the exit. Maybe there's what's making the difference there with the lower fuel across the line, P6 to P3. But by the end of it, Drogovic will come through in the Red Bull Honda to go on pole position. So at the place where he won his first ever Formula 1 race last season, he goes on pole for the home team Red Bull Honda. There's something about Austria that Felipe Drogovic's AI loves on this game. We're in P5, then that means Gasly, though, annoyingly ahead of us and on the front row, so he'll have a really good chance maybe of getting into the lead early. Leclerc, Giovinazzi on the second row. But yeah, so our first run was it was okay. It wasn't anything remarkable. We gained about 1.5 tenths on that second set of tyres, but that whole strategy of me trying to burn the fuel by just going for a slow first flying lap, it didn't exactly work the way I wanted it to, but you can see it's so bloody close here. So many people are sub 1 minute around here that it's always going to be difficult to qualify. But I think in the race we can do something, I would say, but I've just remembered actually we have that whole, you know, starting on 6 lap old tyres. So this is going to be a bit of a painful first stint potentially for us.
Welcome to the beautiful Styrian Mountains for another chapter in the story of the Austrian Grand Prix. It's one of the shortest laps on the calendar today then, with 7 rights and just 3 lefts, making up the 10 corners of this high-speed circuit. Turn 2 is barely a corner at all. They'll be flat out through there, a left-hand kink into the uphill braking zone of Turn 3. Turns 1, 3 and 4 are all potential opportunities to overtake. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Now, can I talk to you about Pierre Gasly? That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
There are never any guarantees in this business, but certainly the performance last time out would have boosted their confidence coming into this one.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Felipe Drogovic lines up on pole position. And it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid we have Giovinazzi, the owner driver, Lando Norris and Tigton. Gasly, they've taken a grid penalty. Ocon, Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Tsunoda, Russell, Callum Islet and Stroll. Mick Schumacher, Bottas, Carlos Sainz and Guan Yu Zhou. Aitken, Matsushita, Lundgaard and Marcus Armstrong. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
Right, so this is probably going to be one of the most difficult starts to an Austrian Grand Prix we've ever had because of our fluff up, because our mess up in Q2, where we did a further 2 flying laps and an out lap and an in lap on top of already doing that in Q1. So this first stint, our race engineer not taking that into account, so having to manually just adjust that for ourselves just to kind of see what we're going to be doing today. So it looks like 15 lap stints then on the mediums, which is not too bad to be fair actually. You can see very similar looking to a normal 2-stop on a set of hard tyres, so it may not be bad. I think just initially this first lap and, you know, the opening laps here might be a bit painful because we are going to have a lot less grip than everyone else initially for traction out of those slower corners. But at least one thing has maybe gone our way is you may have noticed in the grid sequence there that Pierre Gasly is not on the front row anymore. He's taken a 5-place penalty for some sort of component change and he is now down in P7, so that means Leclerc will be on the front row and will have a chance to maybe overtake Drogovic into turn 1. We get elevated to the second row. And in a race where we're trying to bounce back against our teammate, especially after his performance in Canada, that's what we need, the rub of the green. Here we go to 5 red lights to the Austrian Grand Prix. It's a really good start for Giovinazzi. Drogovic is slow off pole position, 3 wide maybe, no, not quite to turn 1. We've got, oh, Tictum is going to cross and he's hit our side pod. Dan Tictum cut the corner at turn 1. It was a kamikaze dive that saw him hit Lando Norris, spin himself round, and he's tagged our side pod. What on earth was he doing? He went into turn 1 way too hot there, got tagged by him by the McLaren, and then, oh my god, that is so unlucky. I tried to dodge it, but he was just going so quickly on the right, towards the right-hand side of the circuit, and it's his front wing that just about clips us, not even by that much. Our teammate Gasly, meanwhile, was actually just behind Tictum's rear wing there and got a clean run through turn 1, of course, so we're the ones that come off the worst there. That is just horrendous. I tried to move as much as I could to the right, but that Red Bull's just flying at us. And he's tagged our side pod, as the engineer will confirm under the virtual safety car, so suggesting that we may have cooling issues and maybe a bit of drag because of that damage.
You've taken damage to the side pods. Expect to feel a little drag.
So now trying to get ready then for this virtual safety car restart. Well, not exactly the most ideal start to this race, and now for the remainder of it, we'll be carrying side pod damage, but we have to just press on with the matter then. We're still ahead of Pierre Gasly then, but it's going to be hard work now with the tyre wear as well, as now immediately on the restart. What a restart for Antonio Giovinazzi. Electric stuff there to send it down the inside of Charles Leclerc. He's up into P2 and he can now chase after Felipe Drogovic, the man of the hour, it would seem, the man of the circuit, as he races away in the race lead at the place, like I said, where he won his first ever race in Formula 1 in that very Lotus Renault that Giovinazzi is now driving in second place. And of course vice versa, that's the Red Bull Giovinazzi used to drive, and now they're going to swap positions here in this race. It's so fitting though, remember, because this was, I think, the final race last season where they were in each other's respective teams, and then they swapped after Austria at the British Grand Prix. So it's so fitting they're fighting each other for the race lead here in their different cars now, as we send it through down the inside of our fellow Brit Lando Norris, catch him napping in the McLaren up into P4. Meanwhile, these two are still going toe-to-toe, but Drogovic showing why he is one of the emerging stars, or has already emerged as a star of Formula 1 right now in this alternate F1 universe of ours, as he defends successfully. And actually Giovinazzi now under pressure from Leclerc as the Porsche tries to come back at him. Can Leclerc get up into P2? No. Through the final corner, Giovinazzi holds the racing line, but the Porsche is looking pretty damn quick in a straight line, it would seem here. Very, very punchy indeed. So will there be another chance for the man from Monaco to get past the Italian? We're going to try and close up as well. If these guys start fighting, this would be ideal, because then we can try and get in the middle of it and try and suss out a place to catch someone napping potentially. But, you know, despite the side pod damage, good overtake on the McLaren, and we're still, you know, at the moment showing better race pace in these early stages versus Gasly, and that's with the tyre wear, remember. But I will have to pit within a lap, because although we've got good pace, I can already feel the tyres are starting to be a bit knackered compared to these guys. Meanwhile, we just watch on there. That was Lewis Hamilton re-overtaking, I think, George Russell in the Aston Martin. I think the two Brits squabbling, the two Fords close together here. Very equally matched for Verstappen and Hamilton this time round, but as a team, they maybe dropped a bit of performance as they're lower down in the points-paying positions. Meanwhile, lap 6 then, we are in for that first pit stop. Now, the pace was okay, but I wasn't really catching Leclerc, and I was kind of holding up Norris into Gasly. So the right time to come in, especially with 34% tyre wear. Not ideal on this on the first set of soft tyres, but now obviously we'll get a good undercut maybe initially on this new set of mediums. So let's watch out for that at least, and kind of worry about the tyre wear later, as we now see 3 wide maybe. Yes, it is. Sonoda, big dive bomb on already squabbling Russell and Hamilton there. McLaren versus Aston Martin versus Ford. 3 big brands duking out in Formula 1. That is awesome. And Sonoda showing some real aggression there with a late dive, as now we watch Drogovic trying to re-overtake Giovinazzi, so he missed it. At some point, Giovinazzi did overtake the Brazilian for the race lead, but it won't matter because the Red Bull is back through into P1 then, the DRS, and Leclerc has a little look in the background there on the Italian, but those 3 are pretty much glued together, nose to tail. Meanwhile, Pierre Gasly has gotten ahead of Lando Norris. So the McLaren, at least in the hands of Lando, kind of falling backwards, whereas Sonoda looking to go forwards at this stage of the race. Lap 9 these guys are going on to, so they're trying to stretch that first stint, and obviously, you know, this is the 4 laps essentially that I did extra on just Q2 alone, basically, in terms of, you know, add on Q1, which is a further lap or 2. So these guys are still able to go on. We would have been able to do this, but if it wasn't for that blunder, as we watch, looks like Lando Norris may have heard me in the commentary box as he comes back at Gasly to overtake up into P4. There's overtakes left, right and centre, as now we've got Giovinazzi back into the lead in the Lotus Renault ahead of Drogovic and Leclerc, but he's going to come in earlier than those 2. The Italians in on lap 10, Drogovic and Leclerc continue on. So just like last season, maybe Drogovic and a Porsche are trying to go long in this race, because last season at Austria it was one of the Red Bull Porsches and Drogovic in the Lotus Renault at the time. Remember, they went so damn long in the first stint and tried to make a one-stop work, and it looks like they may be doing that again. The 2 though are going to tussle. Leclerc versus Drogovic. It's going to be Verstappen versus Gasly. Hang on a minute. So Lando Norris is pit, and somehow Verstappen has just gained so much pace in the clean air maybe, and he's now up into P3. So Verstappen's actually come alive at the end of this stint when the tyres are more worn out. Amazing stuff there from the Dutchman to overtake our teammate. I think Gasly, that would suggest to me though, in the same team, I feel like he would have come in by now. The FOM MyTeam car is very hard on its tyres anyway in general, so I think Gasly may just be trying the one-stop with Drogovic and Leclerc. I am definitely on a 2-stop, as is Giovinazzi, as is Lando Norris, and as is, I think, Max Verstappen. Drogovic comes in, Leclerc stays out for another lap, Verstappen is also in as well. Gasly continues on though, so maybe Drogovic isn't trying the one-stop. Maybe he's coming with Verstappen to bail onto the 2 at the last possible minute, but Leclerc, I would say he's definitely doing a one-stop. Gasly as well, and I think maybe some of these guys also in the trailing pack of Russell, Stroll, Tsunoda. It's kind of unclear because you've also got that pack of Schumacher, Sainz, Bottas, Armstrong, who I'm catching. I don't think they're really in the same race as any of us in the top 10, so it's hard to tell right now what everyone's doing, but we'll find out soon enough. But right now, at the moment, as it stands, I'm actually ahead of Giovinazzi, so I've undercut pretty much, well, everyone that was fighting for the lead who's come in for the 2-stop, but Giovinazzi is now coming back through at us here. Title rivals last season, wheel to wheel, and we defend very nicely into that right-hander. Just kind of ease the car in, let the car go wide on purpose a bit to squeeze him and give him the pinch, and he's going to back out of it. But of course, remember, as we saw earlier, you know, with the radio call, the SIDEPOD damage, it's going to cause some drag, and I'm feeling that a little bit. Giovinazzi was catching us so quickly in the straight, and now there's a kind of secondary thing where I'm feeling a little bit light mid-corner. So like with the floor damage when we've seen previously in this game, as you go on through the laps, you know, you go over curbs and whatnot, I think it gets worse and worse to the feeling of the car. So I think we're going to have a tougher time as this race goes on. But at the moment, we're up into P4 because we've had a whole load of pit stops here. We're catching Mick Schumacher. Like I said, these guys really aren't in our race, so we're just going to try and get past them. They are for position, but they're not really in our race. So that's why we actually need to make it even a more quicker overtake, because they could annoy us, and we need to try and stop that. It's a rear end lockup for us as we go drifting into that right-hander to make the move. Giovinazzi pounces straight on Schumacher into turn 1. The lap 17, it's a lockup for us, and we go nearly completely off circuit. It's a really poor exit, and that will give Giovinazzi a really clear run to blast past us with DRS and Max Verstappen. We squeezed the Dutchman. He's gone down the inside, though. He's narrowly missed Giovinazzi's rear end, though, and we've actually kind of dummied him a little bit because we went for the switchback move. We've got the DRS on him now, wheel to wheel with Verstappen to re-overtake him for P2. Giovinazzi, though, is in the race lead, and obviously you can see there confirmation that finally those guys like Leclerc and Gasly have pit, but they are, I think, trying a one-stop. So it's the 1 versus 2 today.
Some information on Giovinazzi. They have an issue with their car. They're going to be slow.
And now that's just changed things again for us in terms of this race directly. As Drogovic goes for a move on us, we're going to brake early, cut in, try and go for the tighter line to get on the power earlier. DRS open. Both of us are going to catch Giovinazzi at a rate of knots. Verstappen tries a move on the left-hand side, but we're not having any of it. We block him off. We overtake Drogovic, maybe on the outside to get back up into P2, but I want to try and stop squabbling with the Brazilian, because ahead of us, the race leader, Gio, he's got issues. He's got a mechanical fault that will slow him down, so we're going to catch him at a rate of knots on this lap once we're finally, well, now thankfully now we're in clean air a little bit from Drogovic, a bit of breathing space, but that's what I meant, you know, the way Drogovic caught us there into turn 1, you can clearly see my car is a little bit down on straight line speed because of the drag coming off of the broken side pod. But look at this then, we've literally caught Giovinazzi by a second and a bit here in one lap here, such as the issues he's facing. So Giovinazzi's going to have a pretty torrid time, but we are not making life easy for ourselves. Well, that's again, I feel, something to do with the damage we've got on our car as Drogovic goes through on the left hand side. A little bit of a frame rate issue as we go into turn 1. Giovinazzi's going to be slow as a turtle, and we're going to try and overtake him, and if we can, maybe re-overtake Drogovic as we go for the move on the right to the left, and with a big dive, it's going to be deja vu round the outside of the Red Bull Honda to get back up into P1. Now that was a good sequence of a straight in a corner. That was very, very satisfying. But we're having issues on the rear end, and we're going to continue to have them as the rear end snaps, and that's going to allow Drogovic to come back through. We squeeze him. We're just having mistakes after mistakes on this last 2 laps, and I think, to be honest, it's also a lot to do with the tyres as well. Remember, lap 19 here, I came in on lap 6, so I think it's soon time for our second pit stop of the afternoon, so that also might be the issue. It may not just be damage alone, it might be the rear tyres simply wearing out as we go for another lunge on Drogovic. This time it's on the inside there. We're trying our best to spoil the party for the Brazilian, but he's just doing well to capitalise on the mistakes. Verstappen's up into third as Giovinazzi falls away even further. Now he's going to fall towards Lewis Hamilton as Verstappen, Drogovic goes for the kamikaze dive into the right-hander, and he's now trying his utmost best to get through into P1. We're trying our best to be a nuisance to him, and he's probably not really thanking us at all for it, because he could be pushing away and clearing a gap to everyone and trying to pull away from Verstappen here. But we swap ends from left to right to get back into P1 briefly, but we are going to come in for the pit stop. So if this was real life, Drogovic would probably be so pissed off, because I've just fought him for really no reason there, because I was going to come in anyway. But yeah, I think you could say probably actually more so that the last few times my rear end stepped out there was probably more because of the tyre where I was facing than really the damage on my side pod. So we're in now for a second set of medium tyres that will see us through to the end of the Grand Prix. Again, we should get a pretty powerful undercut here on the initial laps, but it's just about the last couple of laps, because we're going earlier in the race on every pit stop. I may be getting an earlier undercut, but I'm also getting the tyre wear earlier, which is not helping. Schumacher versus Ocon. Can we make a double overtake here to get past these two cars who are not in our race? It's a real late lunge to get through, but we managed to slow it down. They're into P16 and some clean air to chase after Ilott and Carlos Sainz, another Ferrari and the Aston Martin. These two have been having a squabble for about 2 laps now, I saw, just further up the road, and they've been side by side like this for a lot of the last 2 laps, and it's just going to help us reel them in. But at the moment, let's just look at the ladder as these two squabble again. Verstappen's in P1 then, so Verstappen and Ford lead the race legitimately right now, ahead of Drogovic and Giovinazzi. But remember, those top 3 are on a 2-stop with me. Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton, Gasly, Tsunoda, I think, are all on a 1-stop on medium tyres. They're trying the soft to medium 1-stop. Very audacious, but because they went so long on the soft tyres at the start of the race, I think they have an okay chance of maybe pulling it off, as now you see Drogovic is in, Giovinazzi's in, Verstappen's the only one out still, so he's trying to extend this stint to give himself the freshest tyre possible at the end of this race. But this effectively will be the lead pack and the lead of the Grand Prix. Leclerc from Russell in the Aston Martin, who's overtaken Gasly then in all of this, and then you've got Tsunoda lagging behind. Ilott and Sainz a lap later are still side by side at this same part of the circuit, and we're now closing in. But we're going to be, maybe apart from Verstappen, I think I might be one of the first people charging against the 1-stoppers, because of course Giovinazzi's slowing down with the mechanical issue, and he's still got that issue because he's backing into Hamilton and Guan Yu Zhou, Norris, and then Drogovic is in P15. What's happened to the Red Bull? Hang on a minute, so he was fighting Verstappen for the lead, so maybe Verstappen was over aggressive with the Brazilian, and he had to make a front wing change maybe for the Red Bull. That's the only thing I can think of. So Drogovic pushed down the order, so it may be just me and Verstappen charging down the 1-stoppers as this battle just continues to go and go. Lap 25, Ilott ahead of Sainz, but now we have arrived on the scene to try and overtake these two. Verstappen's made his pit stop. He's behind us by 4.7 seconds. So again, our undercut has worked out a massive amount. But Verstappen's on so much fresher medium tyres. As I try to overtake Sainz, he locks up, and we try and be patient and clever about it. It's the switchback left to right, and Drogovic is out! Oh no! It's gone from bad to an absolute calamity for the man who had it all in his hands maybe at one point here. It's not going to be a happy return to the Red Bull ring in a Red Bull Honda. He DNFs out this race then with an engine failure, and that's just so sad for him as we now make a move on Callum Ilott. It's a very late lunge, but we had to make it because now we're in acres of clean space to chase after Tsunoda, Gasly, Russell, and Leclerc. And Russell is in P1 right now on the top ladder there, as Verstappen we just saw overtook Schumacher. But George Russell in the Aston Martin at the moment leads. Not for much longer though, lap 27. Leclerc seemingly got past him again, and we just about missed it. But so the Porsche's into the lead, but it's Porsche versus Aston Martin, and potentially Pierre Gasly in 3rd place. So I've not really spoken about it, but yet again, somehow Gasly's got ahead of us in a race here, and he may be on to finish ahead of us. But I'm going to try my utmost to try and rectify that, because although yes, we have some damage right now, my tyres, the fresher tyres, are working a treat to counteract that damage, as you can clearly see for Verstappen as well. That's what the fresh medium is allowing, is just so much better grip mid-corner. Verstappen makes easy work of Ilott, and will probably make easy work of Carlos Sainz as well, and get up into P6. So it's myself and him charging towards those guys in the top 4 that they're doing a 1-stop. But remember, they're doing a 1-stop on mediums from the soft compound, so their tyres are going to be screaming at the end of this race. So we should have a chance maybe to catch them, you would hope. But right now, as it stands, it is all Russell versus Leclerc at the sharp end. This is absolutely amazing though. Remember, the Aston Martin has not been a good car in this career mode for about 5 seasons here, but Russell is just out driving it and dragging it to heights it shouldn't be in, and he's into P1 back again, having just overtaken Leclerc. Gasly tried to get him, Leclerc that is, for P2, but couldn't quite do it there. Tsunoda is slowing. He's not really looking likely to start fighting them, and he's actually just slowly creeping into range of our ourselves and Verstappen. So I think sooner rather than later, we will catch Tsunoda at least. And then I really hope we can try and catch Gasly for maybe a late podium charge. But Verstappen might ruin the party. But either way, if we can try and just catch Gasly, that would be ideal. Down the order, I think Giovinazzi now has sped back up because he's no longer now going into Hamilton's kind of overtaking window. So I think Giovinazzi's now settling down and trying to catapult himself from P10 and make something happen. But it's back again with Leclerc versus Russell. The Porsche down the inside on lap 29. We've only got 6 laps to go after this lap, but this is becoming a classic fight. Look at it. They're coming back. Russell comes back at Leclerc. The two are so close together. Wheel-to-wheel stuff between two amazing car brands, Porsche and Aston Martin. Leclerc this time, though, is actually going to defend successfully in the second sector. Meanwhile, for us, lap 31, Verstappen is coming through, and we are not going to put up much of a fight because he's on like 4 laps younger, 5 laps younger tyres. There's no point. If anything, Verstappen's going to do me a favour. If he can catch Tsunoda and even Gasly, Russell and Leclerc, as these two continue to squabble on lap 32. Russell the long way around the outside. Leclerc, though, defends well again to maintain track position in sector 2. But as I was saying, if Verstappen can go and fight those guys, he could slow them down and maybe bring them back into my range. Because if I fought Verstappen, that wouldn't help either of us. It wouldn't help me especially because my tyres are already older a bit. So we had to play that a bit smart there and think about where we were doing things. Meanwhile, Giovinazzi, by the way, like I said, he's sped back up. He's into P7 now, so he's recovering in this race then. The Italian is overtaking Dan Ticktum, and Ticktum's now fighting Schumacher. Meanwhile, Verstappen goes for a move on Tsunoda on lap 33, so he's caught him rapidly, but Tsunoda comes back at him then into turn 1, and the safety car is out. It's a late safety car. So is this going to be late drama then at the Austrian Grand Prix? This has been an action-packed thriller, and it may just have one last chapter because Verstappen may be helped by a safety car yet again in F1 because he's going to be on the freshest tyres out of all of us here on the last 2 laps of this race then, 35 and 36. We go again. Go green. Leclerc from Russell, from Gasly, Tsunoda, Verstappen. I'm actually now having a look at Verstappen, but we actually think better of it because I need to play this smart because behind me I've now got Giovinazzi who's looking quick again, and I need to protect my tyres and wait for the last lap to maybe try and make a last-ditch effort to overtake because I could easily be overtaken if I'm not careful as Tsunoda makes a big old dive and he's going for P3. Gasly's under pressure. This is what we need to see for our battle versus Pierre as he goes defensive against Yuki. Can the McLaren go the long way around? Not quite. And Gasly shoves him off. And now Verstappen and myself are caught up behind him. You can see I'm being patient because if I go for a dive and it doesn't work, I don't have the tyres to defend Giovinazzi. So I need to let Verstappen do the work for me. Overtake Tsunoda. We'll get Tsunoda then once he's been overtaken. And then we can see what we could do with Gasly. But to be honest, I think now with the safety car, it's allowed him to pull away there a bit because we've been stuck behind Verstappen and Tsunoda. We now overtake the McLaren into turn 1. The last lap of the Grand Prix this is. We're up into P5. Verstappen may have a good chance of getting Gasly, getting a late podium. For us though, maybe P5, maybe the maximum behind. It's a five-way fight for the last 5 positions of the points paying role. And Giovinazzi's pushed down to P9 and then back in the lead. This is on the last lap. George Russell going for the move. He sent it down the inside and he's got the overtake. The Aston Martin at the death of it on the last lap of the Grand Prix has just overtaken the Porsche for P1. It's going to be a monumental win for the Brit as we maintain P5. We're nowhere near Verstappen because he's pushed away to try and get Gasly, and could he get him through the last 2 corners? But it's all going to be about George Russell. But Verstappen's done it. Verstappen gets the late 3rd place, but George bloody Russell wins the Austrian Grand Prix in a lowly Aston Martin. How the hell has he done that? This is a madness of a finish. Verstappen with the late overtake for P3 as well. And also behind us. What the hell was kicking off behind us?
A victory for Aston Martin, The team will certainly be celebrating tonight. And talk to me, what do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
I think we'll chalk this one up to a deft touch on the brake pedal. That's allowed them to challenge down the inside into the braking zones, and ultimately, if you do that often enough, you end up winning the race. It was great to watch as well though, wasn't it? Forget strategy, forget tyre management. Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned scrap?
It's time to present the top drivers with their trophies for today's Grand Prix. And there are a lot of people in the paddock very happy with this result. It's Aston Martin on the top step.
George Russell wins another F1 race. He wins in this. I really did not think we were going to be seeing a Russell win this season in the Aston Martin, but he's done it. What a victory on the last lap against a very strong Porsche and Leclerc. He's won the Austrian Grand Prix. Verstappen with a late charge, late lunge on Gasly to get P3. We just did not have the tyre wear right at the end to do anything. We weren't anywhere close to Gasly. We pulled away from Tsunoda because Tsunoda was in a fight with the 4 cars behind him for the last points-paying positions. Literally 5 cars were fighting for P6 to P10 and P11. Sorry, it was a madness. So we kind of felt safe in that regard. But in the end of it, again, Gasly beats us in the race, and he is maintaining the lead in the championship. Verstappen now up into P2 ahead of myself. Giovinazzi down to P4 after that, poorly, obviously, middle stint. We had a mechanical issue, so to be expected, but I'm sure he'll bounce back. But interesting times. Gasly feeling comfortable, it would seem, with 8 points, which is quite large, really, in terms of career mode terms, ahead of a monstrous Verstappen. I mean, we haven't really spoken about it too much, but the fact that Verstappen is still in the top 3 of the championship without having a race win is crazy. This man has been the most consistent man I've ever seen. I thought Russell was consistent last season and the season before. I thought Giovinazzi was consistent last season. But the fact that Verstappen is still here in such a competitive grid in the top 3 of the championship without having a win, that says a lot. That says a lot. It's an absolute madness, really, and he's doing absolutely wonderfully for Ford. For us, I don't know. I'm not disappointed by the race because I think we would have gone so much better, and I 100% think we would have beaten Gasly if we didn't have that damage and the pit stop blunder of having to pit so much earlier every pit stop because of that mistake we made in qualifying. So, you can say a lot, though, in hindsight of if, buts, and maybe. So we did get beaten by him, but I'm not too disappointed because I think there was a lot of pace there, and we can take that confidence through into next race, which is our home Grand Prix at Silverstone. But guys, if you have enjoyed that one, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.